From the center of the galaxy, this is ForceCenter, a show about Star Wars, pop culture, and the ultimate adventure, life itself. I'm Ken Napzok.
Joseph Scrimshaw.
And I'm Jennifer Landa.
And we're here to talk about Thrawn Unleashed, with an exclamation point on that one, because we finally got to see Grand Admiral Thrawn in live action, and that is, for some, a couple years in the making, and for others, decades in the making. We're going to dive into all of that here a little bit on the show. Before that we do that, today's podcast is brought to you by Audible. Get a free audiobook download and a 30-day free trial at audibletrial.com/ForceCenter. Over 180,000 titles to choose from for your iPhone, Android, Kindle, or MP3 player. A little bit later, as always, we'll have our ForceCenter recommends an audiobook we think you should try out on us. But here we are. Joseph, here we are. Truly,
We are.
talk.
We are here. We are on YouTube now, but Ken, I was kind of laughing because you are doing your best. It's 2 a.m. and I'm a late night DJ. Your intro today really matched the Thrawn. Like, he's whispering. I got to lean in. Like, I love it. Perfect.
I'm extra tired. I don't know why I'm tired today. And in fact, you can see I have the glasses on. Not unusual, but I was telling Jen before we went on air, and Joseph, you were checking in. Until about 5 minutes before airtime, I forgot we do cameras now, and I was in my workout gear. I had my contacts out. I was like, oh wait, we've changed things. I got to dress up a little bit.
I was running late for similar reasons. Yep. Behind me, there's fire and chaos. Yeah.
Oh,
Jen's over there going, whatever. Dudes, I had to put on makeup.
exactly.
On camera professional Jennifer Landa. We are excited to unleash Thrawn and unleash our Thrawn thoughts. We are going to discuss old Red Eyes, the cold, calculating Chiss strategist, the big blue, big bad Grand Admiral Thrawn, his leap to live action, his role in Ahsoka, and his importance in future Star Wars storytelling. I want to start just by taking the old Thrawn temperature. It's something we have done throughout our years doing shows together. But Jennifer, at this point, what is your relationship with Thrawn? Were you really excited to see him in live action? Or was that one of the things you were looking forward to in the build-up to Ahsoka?
I was looking forward to seeing him in live action because I really, really liked the character from Heir to the Empire many years ago. It's been many years since I read that book. But I remember when I read that book, I really liked that he was a different type of villain. He was blue. That was something new and interesting. And I also thought he was a little weird, right? He had those creatures, the Ysalamiri creatures, right? That could that could create the little bubble of repelling the Force. Like, it just was really odd and fun and different that I was used to for a Star Wars villain. So I was very excited. And because I have kind of mixed feelings about the animated version in Star Wars Rebels, which we'll get into.
Okay, great. But you did like him back in the day, so you considered yourself sort of an old school Thrawn fan.
Yeah, absolutely. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And I know you have had a real mix on what books you've been able to read. Did you read any of the newer canon Thrawn books? There's the trilogy of sort of Thrawn's adventures in the Empire, and then a Thrawn sort of prequel trilogy of, Thrawn Begins with the Chiss ascendancy.
Right. I remember being excited and thinking, wow, Timothy Zahn's back. And I didn't read it. Maybe I should listen to it on Audible, right? And catch up.
Those books were coming out when a lot of books were coming out. Yeah. And and I think hardcore fans got to them, but I think maybe not everybody else did. Ken, what is your Thrawn past and your Thrawn temperature going into Ahsoka and coming out of Ahsoka, the Ahsoka series?
The Ahsoka series. I think it's in a positive spot now, and it was never negative. I have talked about it before, but here's a chance to really put it on the permanent record. I'm with you, Jen. I love the Heir of the Empire series then, and I appreciate it now for what it did, and it really did keep Star Wars going in a time where that didn't seem to be a sure thing. I will never not credit Zahn in those books in that time for that. But over time, Thrawn went from that cool character that I liked. I loved him. I always joked, you know, I wanted Jack Nicholson to play him in live action, like perfect for Jack. He was just coming off Batman, like let's put some blue paint on him and go ahead and I would quote Thrawn. I'm now over time I'm paraphrasing, but there was a quote at one point of in the books of if you have a problem, eliminate the problem, and I thought that was so cool. That's how you run things, you know. That's how you control things. And he was, you know, we had Palpatine, this grand dark space wizard. We had Vader in the mask, and now you got this cool calculating guy, and that's still part of the appeal of the character, by the way, to me. But over the years, it's waned. I like him in Rebels because that was more of the Thrawn that I liked, the personality stuff and the tactics and everything, the art appreciation and all that. I love pulling those out of the books. The new Thrawn books are great. I mean, Zahn's a great writer. For me, Thrawn in the books, I don't side with him on a lot of issues. I don't support the choices he's made, whether it's for the greater good and he's a chaotic evil and all that kind of stuff I've heard people say. He kind of comes off, I'll just say it, as a Jordan Peterson in space, and I don't like him. And I don't like him. And that's just the way it is. So I was very curious and excited to see how they would take all those versions and put it into a live action character.
This is great because I think we all have similar but divergent Thrawn experiences. Heir to the Empire books, you know, I was thrilled that they existed, but I was challenged from the first pages. I didn't like that Obi-Wan Kenobi was not going to appear to Luke anymore. I didn't like the Yosalama Marari who blocked the Force. But I did like Thrawn because in the original trilogy, we had Grand Moff Tarkin, and then the rest of the Imperials after that were basically like, they're just there to either make a whoopsie or be afraid to make a whoopsie and get killed by Vader. So this idea of like, what if we turn this all on its head? An Imperial officer who's competent. What about that? Was really fun and thrilling. So he was one of my favorite parts of the books. And I really loved him in Rebels. I really loved that idea of evil space Sherlock Holmes, who is maybe a little cold and distant himself and has a little bit of a cold and distant interior life, but knows that he needs to observe every little thing about people and try to understand who they are in order to defeat them is a fascinating thing. I love the whisper voice. I love the art appreciation. Really enjoyed that first Thrawn trilogy with his introduction to the Empire and then alliances with Vader and Anakin and Padme. All that stuff was great.
Well, I like that one. Yeah.
And I even enjoyed the first book in the Ascendancy trilogy, and I would have read the rest if time had not been such an obstacle. And what I really appreciate about his character is I don't agree with his goals. And I know that there are some fans who are really like, no, he's really understandable. He's a sympathetic character. He's just trying to save his people. He's willing to do incredibly murderous, cruel things and support an authoritarian government to protect his people. So I don't agree with his goals, but there's something really cathartic about his process. And I wish sometimes that people in the real world did not have Thrawn's goals, but had more of his attitude of utter clarity on what the actual problem is and just focusing in on solving it. Like, I feel like, let's say Thrawn wanted to win elections in America. I think he'd be like, tweeting mean jokes about the appearance of a politician does absolutely nothing. Why don't you register some people to vote, since that's the actual goal? There are only two options. A third party would be wonderful. However, it is not even remotely realistic. How can you best support your there's a craving for me of somebody who actually has the methods of Thrawn. So that's satisfying to be like, let's all be more like Thrawn, except for without the goals of supporting an authoritarian government and subjugating other people because you're afraid for your own people.
It's like he's a former chief of staff who has left the administration and has written a book about how bad it was. And you're like, yeah, but you were in the administration. You were there. Yeah, you got a book deal now, but you should have made a better choice. You weren't fighting for the greater good. But I really want to say how much I agree with all the stuff you're saying about what he brings to the table. And like I mentioned, it was a little different than a Vader or Palpatine at the time. And it is truly interesting to hear him and mesmerizing at times. And that's, that even goes into the voice that Lars, I think, does both Rebels and now live action. I think that stuff really does work. And I do want to be clear. I'm not so completely anti-Thrawn. And I enjoy with lessons that could be learned from him.
Yeah, no, I love Thrawn as a character. I disagree that he is to be rooted for. I think he is the villain of the piece. And I was excited to see him in live action in Ahsoka because I think I want to see him reach his full potential in live action, which is he's a great antagonist. He's a great person for the good guys to push up against. But I also think he has such complexity that's been developed in the books, all the books and the comics over all the years. And I can't wait to see him be a character onto himself with, complexities and contrasts and fears and all that. And I think we began to see that in live action, which leads me to my next question. Ken, did you actually enjoy his leap to live action, his look, his vibe, the translation of the character? Did you feel like this is the character I know from books and from Rebels animation?
I really ended up liking it a lot. And I, in a series that I've said a few times now, challenged me more than other series, blah, 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 blah. Thrawn did not. I really thought Lars Mikkelsen just hit it out of the park in the moments he had. And he didn't have a ton, right? He was kind of the present unwrap at the end of the series. But I liked it. The vibe is great. I was watching it again this weekend, and just the torn up, burnt, ripped uniform. Just everything about Thrawn's very bad decade or whatever out here is it's a thing. I will say the look, and I want to be careful in choosing my words because so much passion went into the design of this character in live action, the execution of this character in live action. I remember the first time I was watching it, I laughed and thought, man, I bet a lot of people don't like that Zahn made him blue at this point. and the thing, it was not one of those, hey, it looked bad or bad. It just was like, I just kept looking at him like, yeah, it's a guy painted blue. Like whether or not there was some post-production to make the blue pop a little bit more, the eyes, all this stuff, I don't care. But the makeup team obviously did a great job designing it and executing what was already there. But I just remember thinking, maybe someone could go back to like 89 and 90 with Zahn and go, I don't know, just make him have a scar. Just something.
For anybody who is listening on the podcast, you should know that on the video side, Mala, Jennifer's dog, appears to have strong opinions about Thrawn.
She heard Thrawn's name somehow and came over here.
Hey, Mala.
Oh,
hey, what are you doing? What are you doing?
She was upstairs. Sorry about that.
Oh, look. No worries at all. We just like to be honest.
If my Chihuahua could reach my studio chair, she'd be up here right now.
Yeah, so Ken, for me, the blue worked great. I think it helped that this was a show that was born of animation, so you had a lot of aliens and you had a lot of choices that maybe if it started in live action you wouldn't have made. But the blue and the red eyes, the only thing look-wise for me that was a little wonky was the hair looked a little there was something just a little for me off about it. There was something a little bit like, this is a scary blue man with intense red eyes. I absolutely believe it. And is he doing an Elvis show later in Vegas? There's something about his hair that was just like almost, and it is always utter respect to the people who did their damnedest to bring this fantasy villain to live action. And as we've seen again and again with some of these live action adaptations, Ahsoka has started looking better and better and better over her appearances. And I think by the time we get to, Thrawn in a live action film, his hair is going to be spectacular.
It almost had a little bit of Ronald Reagan in the British puppet show Spitting Image. Mommy, just had a little. I know what you mean.
It is a total SNL. Like Thrawn has 5 other characters to play. And this gotta switch out. Yeah. We can get a little bit deeper into the character himself, but since we're on appearance, Jennifer, where were you at with just like his appearance? Did it all work for you?
I thought it was fine. This is where I'm going to differ a little bit because I think this is a case of when you've built something up in your mind for so long. I have a very clear idea of what I wanted to see on screen. And so for me, I felt like the character could have been dialed up more. I would have liked it to be a little bit more evil, a little bit more sinister. I felt like he was at a 4. I wanted him at an 8.
Mm.
And I was like, who? I like his voice. I like that he was cool. He was just a little too cool for my liking. And I
Is
was
this
trying to
going back to Rebels?
even going back to Rebels, but
Okay.
but I chalked that up to the fact that maybe because it was animated, that it had to be like that. So I really was looking forward to seeing him in live action. And I hate to say this, but I would have been interested to see Mads Mikkelsen, who we know he's already been in Star Wars, right? But I kind of want that type of evil, if you know what I mean. And maybe it's just me because I like drama, or even like what we've seen in our Game of Thrones type of villains, right? There's just like this, I can't describe it. It's this almost like this like melodrama, or like enjoying, being sinister and evil. I don't know. Maybe it's the character. It's just how I envision the character. More evil.
Yeah, so like when I think of Mads Mikkelsen, like one of the touch points for me as a big Bond fan is La Chiffre in Casino Royale, and he's a character who also is like he's very analytical, like Thrawn. He's all numbers, and he plays things like very close to the vest. But when he gets angry, it's a little bit more like there's a monster under the surface that could come out and be violent.
That's what I want to see.
And for you, that's who Thrawn is in the books: cold, calculating, but a little bit more of that like if he snaps, he might just shoot someone right there on the bridge, kind of thing.
Right, the danger, the unpredictability. That's kind of what I was missing. And so, because that's, to me, that's the scariest type of villain, or any type of character, is where you have no idea what they're gonna do next. Are they gonna be my buddy, or are they gonna try and kill me? Right, like that. I think, I don't know. We'll get into it more. I have a lot more notes.
Yeah. No, this is great. I love it. No, don't ever be sorry for having thoughts on our discussion.
Sorry, all you Thrawn lovers. I'm a Thrawn lover too, and I think that's why, like we've talked about so many times, is like when you build something up in your mind, what you want versus what is given to you.
Yeah. Well, I'll put it out there that I think I like having a dialed down version of that villain, because I think we have a lot of villains who do have that, like they could crack any moment. And what I like about him in Rebels is that whisper that really is manipulative to me, of like make you lean in. And I'm sure every once in a while Thrawn would like to have a conversation with somebody who is absolutely on the same page with him, and he's like, actually, we're not going to do the logical thing. We're going to do this screwy thing. And to put the character across, there's always a character around him who's go like, what? Morgan Elsbeth does it in the live action, does the what? Why would we do that? So he can calmly explain to you why this is really smart. I like that general take on the character of like his mood and his energy and even his expressions are mostly at a 4, but the results are at like a 9. And I think that's done well in Rebels, where we see some of the true pain and horror he puts Hera and Sabine and Ezra through by just calmly commanding it. We can get into, when we talk about how well they put him over as a villain, like how effective some of his actual actions are in live action Ahsoka. But in terms, for me, like the vibe of the character, I thought this was a great growth from Rebels, where Lars Mikkelsen was able to do these teeny tiny, maybe too tiny sometimes, beats, facial reactions, a little bit more of that sort of jazz acting. It's more what Thrawn doesn't say. It's that beat he takes before he speaks. And I think, final thought on that, and I want to kick it back to you, Ken. I was happy that we got what I liked out of Thrawn in Rebels, of the low talking, really good manager who gives his evil employees a gold star for a good job. That weird, interesting character. And I think we did get, it was subtle, but we did get a changed character. I loved the amount of time that was spent on him reflecting, either actually vocally or in small reactions, to the fact that he'd been bested by Jedi and by dark magic, and that he was entirely investing in this. And I do feel like we did see moments of him breaking. I think we saw moments of legitimate fear. There's that moment in Rebels during the Bendu attack where he just kind of pretty much shouts for Thrawn, "What Jedi devilry is this?" Sort of like, I don't want to deal with any of this. What is this weird crap? And now he's just sort of like, all of the Jedi, anything Force related ever, is a massive problem. It must be taken very seriously. And there's fear and there's paranoia to me. It's incredibly subtle, but there is fear and paranoia. And that's what I really liked, is seeing him affected by the adventures he'd already had in Rebels. Ken, I want to pitch it back to you for more of your thoughts on how he came across as a character, as opposed to being painted blue.
Yeah. It just it comes off. Yeah, that is just, it's sci-fi for me, which it's sometimes an issue. But I one of the things I'd like. Yeah, I think there's some scars on what has happened to him, and there's almost a fear that creeps up, a little bit of a fragility to what's going on. Where I think if you know the character for a long time, you're like, oh, he's he's still trying to let you know, or make you think he's got this uniform that's crisp and clean and white, but we see burn marks on it. Like we know you've been through some stuff, and I thought that was really effective. And one of the things I've always liked about Thrawn, and especially I thought from Rebels on, and I think this is one of the things the books, the new Thrawn books, did well, which is he's the kind of villain where you feel like maybe if you were to just talk to him, maybe you could he'd show some sort of empathy, right? Like you would be able to negotiate with him because he is so reasoned in his responses, and he understands, and he's studied you. Like he understands the needs of all the voters, and he's going to talk to you about it. And then you feel like you could get to him, but really, no, I've studied you to destroy you. And I thought that was there. And to your point, Jenna, Joseph, you and I went to the same spot. Yeah. Not to pit brother against brother, but Mads in Casino Royale had that. That's what was so great about his performance that launched his career to a next level, a new stratosphere, was that calm, collected, but man, he'll strap you to a chair and take a rope and hit you where you don't want to, and so I can understand that at times, because I think in the live action shot here with Ahsoka, he shows up so late that we didn't get as enough of him as maybe even I would want. And I'm with you, Jen, and what you're talking about comes from a point of desire for the character of Thrawn, which is never a bad thing. So anyways, all that to say on the table, that stuff was still effective for me in the live action. And I felt that Thrawn, the I'll talk to you and you can think you get to me, but I'm still pretty evil. It was there.
Yeah. His goal over all else. One of the lines that I liked in particular was, when Elsbeth Morgan says, "Oh, there's little the Jedi can do to stop us now," and he says, "I watched many an Imperial officer make the same assumptions about the rebellion. Even I fell victim to the heroics of a single Jedi." There's a little pause, and he says, "Never again," which I think for me is like, that's Thrawn borderline having an emotional breakdown and throwing something across the room. Like that's as emotional as he gets, but the sort of like, even I was bested. And then he doesn't need to say never again. That's he's kind of communicating to Morgan Elsbeth, but that's also to me like is close to raw emotional expression as Thrawn gets. Is a never again. But I totally can understand where you're coming from, Jennifer, where if it feels like if we're setting him up is this giant threat.
Yes.
That isn't quite enough emotion. Is that where you're coming from?
Exactly. Which we're going to get into that. Exactly. Yes,
okay.
Yes.
Okay. Cool. All right. So I want to talk a little bit about his backstory, and then we will get into, I think, maybe the heart of what we're talking about of whether or not he was put over as a villain. But I first want to talk a little bit about where we are meeting him. I think there was a lot of great tip of the iceberg storytelling about Thrawn's time in exile. We hear from Ezra the practical. He found this place, woke up the witches, rebuilt his ship. So you get a little picture of like, okay, he's had some time. There's the conversation about that they've had a lot of losses of troops and equipment, so they have to be sparing. But we also see the damaged ship. We see Enoch's strange golden faceplate that is not explained. We see the troopers chanting Thrawn's name in a cult-like fashion, and his partnership with the Night Sisters, the Great Mothers, all that. Ken, what did you enjoy about the sort of tip of the iceberg storytelling about what Thrawn had been through in exile?
It's just that, man. He's been through some bleep, and I love it. Like, I think that's a great example of tip of the iceberg storytelling. There's a Thrawn Zahn novella in this story, right? About
Zahn's already talked about He's got it written in his head and is waiting for Filoni's permission to write it.
Of course he does. Thrawn took 2.5 steps to the right as the Great Mothers approached him. Yes. But I like that, right? Just that ship, the Chimera, has been in Star Wars lore, legends or otherwise, doesn't matter. It's going on 30 plus years now, right? That ship has some, just the shot of it in Rebels, right? Just going, oh my God, it's got the I call it the ship tattoo on it. It's to see it and then to immediately see how destroyed it is. That's all I needed for the story and how rough it is. And we talked last time out about Ezra and how there's the breaking of the cycle on this world of Peridia that Ezra is an example of, that it's marauders just taking from each other and conquering and conquesting, using power to survive, and Ezra uses community to survive. And then you got the other side, Thrawn, it seems as though he might have been fighting against the world. And that's what, because again, how much did the Star Whales, how much damage did they do to those ships on the way out? We don't know. And I just the Night Troopers, Enoch, all that stuff. It's great example of tip of the iceberg storytelling for me.
Yeah, Jennifer, how did you feel about the portrait of what did or didn't happen to Thrawn over there in the other galaxy?
I thought that they did a fantastic job at setting the table for this character. The music is so powerful and ominous, dramatic. The visuals, whoa, right? And the Captain Enoch,
Yeah.
Enoch, yeah.
All of that was so great and bold. But for me, then it didn't feel like this beautiful table was set. But when we actually went to have the meal, it didn't live up to how it was presented for me personally. And I felt like I would have loved, and it's because, like you said, Ken, we didn't get this character until later in the series, so that we didn't have as much time to spend with him, which is, I think, perhaps what I'm reacting to. I would have loved to have seen a moment of him in his chambers or somewhere where he's reflecting, he's thinking, and maybe that's where Morgan Elsbeth comes and talks to him about this thing. I just want to, I don't know, I just want to see more of the character, perhaps that I knew or imagined. I don't know. More.
Yeah. I think more to me is a fair reaction to lots of things in Ahsoka. I think for me, there's a lot of storytelling that feels like it is trying to be extremely minimal. And I think there are some moments for me where it's like almost too minimal, where like let Balin and Shin get mad and butt heads a little bit more directly. Let Morgan Elsbeth pull Thrawn into a room and try to get under his skin and have a little bit some of those conflicts. I understand that's not the storytelling style that this show is, and that this show works great for other people, but I understand the sort of pining for that of some of the characters to push at each other a little bit and try to get underneath one another's surface just a little bit. And I think this is also stuff that's like, it's there. I truly believe it is there in the text. I think it could be underlined more, is a lot of the stuff that I like about Thrawn. But this, what they've been through, we did see the Chimera get a little crunched up by the Purgle tendrils, but the amount that it has been sort of patched up, and that it is still so dominating in its appearance, that like just kind of literal kind of upsetting image of it sort of literally sort of subjugating the Night Sisters temple, and suffocating it and dominating it, is such a great introduction. But I think my favorite thing about all that, I love you see all the creepy night troopers, and then Enoch turns to us with his creepy little golden mask, face that has these sort of connections to that looks like it is stolen from another culture. Was it stolen from a temple? Was it ripped off? An elder person of a community that you murdered? There's like great, just like that's wonderful, and I don't need to hear that story. But perhaps the biggest thing to me is hearing the night troopers chant Thrawn. That, in him like turning to the Night Sisters and saying, I'm once again in need of your dark magic. Thrawn is a strategist. He's a realist. He's a person who struggles himself to understand emotions. He observes practical, palpable things and calculates them. And in this situation, I love the story of like, I am observing, I'm strategizing, I'm looking at what I can physically see and touch, and this empire, this government, this military has to become a cult. In order for me to survive, I have to switch from military to religion. The way they're chanting Thrawn is so cult-like, and I would have taken a little bit more of this, but a couple of times he really says for the Empire. When the night troopers volunteer to what we understand to be, be reanimated to continue fighting, he says, are these the volunteers? And Morgan Elsbeth says, all we're honored to make this sacrifice for you. And Thrawn says, it is for the Empire, the security of our galaxy. And to me, there's this really playful sort of like, playful is a weird word, but it's like he's told them that we're all doing this for the Empire to get back and secure the galaxy. But he's also clearly either trained or allowed them to turn him into a godlike figure to chant his name and to say, yeah, sure, I'll be reanimated to fight endlessly and be murdered multiple times by Jedi for you, Daddy Thrawn cult leader. That was the most interesting part of it to me, the sort of cultish side.
Yeah. Yeah. And when we get to the putting them over conversation coming up here in a second, put a pin in that. It's a great stuff.
Okay, cool.
Exactly.
All right, well, let's go on to that, because I think that's where we're all heading to, this big question of Jen. I'd love to start with you. Did you feel like the show did a good job putting him over to new viewers as a big threat? I mean, we're kind of talking from the perspective of, did he live up to what we talked about? There's also new viewers who didn't see Rebels, haven't read a book. They talk about him a ton. The first half of the show, the whole show is sort of predicated on the stakes of it are, this scary, soft-speaking blue guy might come back, and then it's war and we might lose. And then he shows up. Did they put him over? Was the master strategist on display?
I think on paper and in theory. I would love to know somebody who has no knowledge of Thrawn what they think of him, because I'm totally biased, and in my viewing of him, I would have loved to have seen him be a little bit more egotistical. You know what I mean? Narcissistic, because I felt like that was kind of what was coming through in the books for me. Again, maybe I'm remembering this wrong. It's been a long time. I kind of feel like that adding that layer could have brought something interesting to the character. So I don't know. Again, they set the table beautifully. We all know they're telegraphing, this is the bad guy right here. Whether or not you really would understand how big of a bad guy, how big of a threat he is, I have no idea. Let us know. If you have no knowledge of Thrawn, what did you think? Leave it in the comments below.
Go for it, Ken.
Yeah. No, I really want to know that too. And we, I would have had my fiance Grace would have been a perfect kind of test for that, but we didn't finish the series. We want to. I of course finished it, but she stopped after about the third one. Because that's the big question for me. You hear him in Mando, you hear, Ahsoka asking Elsbeth the first time, and then we all get excited, and then you hear him, you see Captain Paleon and the meeting, and the Thrawn's busy right now, but you don't want to piss him off, and then they talk about him, then we see him, and have we got enough yet to have everyone buy into him being as absolute big threat when he comes back? You get the sense that there might have been conversations that, if Thrawn hadn't been taken out, we might have lost the Galactic Civil War, right? That's kind of the feel. And now that he's back, we might win it. I don't know if that 100% worked, and it's impossible for me to answer that because I just know, right? Yeah, trust me. I've been telling you since high school in the 90s that Thrawn's a threat. And so was there enough shown? Is it because he's so much of an opposite? He isn't, and he's not going to be the big demonstrative villain. But I love the moments you're highlighting, Joseph. I think that was one of my favorites, was the Thrawn, the chanting. But how he could do that and how that's going to play out is big for me. And a lot of what you were saying, if Thrawn's like, all right, how am I going to win with a beat up, broken ship, zombie troopers, and some witches that I definitely appreciate, and I've cut a deal with them. But I don't know what's going on. I don't deal with that. I just don't want to lose to that kind of stuff again. How does that translate to a galaxy that's kind of thinks they got it all figured out? And we've seen there's some questions about the New Republic, and we could probably do and should, and I think we'll do a full episode on the state of the New Republic at this point. If he comes back, and I'm sorry for making this direct reference again, but if he's kind of like, I have a plan to make the galaxy great again, and because this isn't great, right? Like nothing, and it's the Werner Herzog thing. How is your rebellion, worked out? Is this winning for you, right? It's Mads and Dial of Destiny saying to the waiter, and are you enjoying, the freedom you earned fighting in World War II for this country? You like that? If he could have that kind of dangerous, almost political, demagogue, zealot kind of leader, and use that, I almost want like a season of just him coming back and going, I'm going to run for office.
Yeah, well, we're going to talk more about his future. So I love what you're saying, Ken. And I think there's a lot. I'm very curious to see how much he will be just used as a threatening presence versus we're going to get under the skin of him as a character in his beliefs. For this introduction to him, I feel like a lot of the build up before we saw him was great. I think just Genevieve O'Reilly's performance of the line of how real is Thrawn's return. Like Mon Mothma was scared, which is successful in making me scared. For Thrawn himself, I think that we got an introduction to the character because we had those various conversations of, everybody else would say go left. Surprise, we're going right. And Morgan Elsbeth going like, why? And him explaining his, master strategy. I think that it would have been great to see a little bit more specific, direct. I can hurt Ahsoka because I understand her so well, because I understand Anakin. I think the sort of master strategist was on display in terms of let's see how he thinks. He can outsmart our heroes, his opponents, up to a point. This is one of those things that's like, I would have loved it to be underlined more. I do love that he understands that, like, the Jedi are relentless in general. Ahsoka in particular will be relentless, and she will come charging at the front door. It's a thing that gets underlined and highlighted in the Clone Wars that the Jedi keep trying to come up with complex attack strategies, and Anakin's just like, assault the front door with force. And the fact that Ahsoka does actually do Anakin's tactics that are on screen in the Clone Wars, like that's the kind of thing that like I wish it would have been maybe pulled out a little bit more so we could have seen a little bit more of how much his deep understanding of Anakin would help. The other things for me that did help put him across, even though I would have taken a little bit more of a decisive victory from master strategist analyzation, I thought it was powerful that his goal was crystal clear, and that's one of the things that he kept reminding the audience via conversations with Morgan Elsbeth about, of my goal is to escape. And then after that, bigger fish to fry. But right now, this is all I care about, because it created this interesting tension with what the stakes were between Ahsoka and Sabine throughout the show, that Ahsoka had been in a dark place, and in that dark place had made her more Thrawn-like, of clear, objective, period, one thing. It's not emotional. It's sacrifice anyone or anything for the objective. His objective is get out of exile. Her objective was stop him from getting out of exile. Sabine and her, epiphanies with Anakin helped her open up to, that's actually a dark, horrible place to be in sometimes. So I think that contrast between Ahsoka's growth to go, maybe rescuing Ezra is just as important as stopping Thrawn, kind of seeing that Thrawn's not the character who's ever going to have that epiphany, who's not going to understand the value of connection or emotion. Again, this is the kind of thing I would have taken to be maybe a little bit more underlined. But he's got those lines to Sabine about you've risked your entire... You've gambled everything on your faith that Ezra will have survived. And Sabine says, you would never understand that. And he kind of has a, perhaps not. Like that, the lack of emotion and lack of understanding emotions is his weakness. So I think that was told well. Final thing I wanted to ask you both about in this, when he's kind of alarmed that Ahsoka is Anakin's apprentice and being like, okay, we're really gonna have to prepare for this. I was kind of expecting between weeks for him to turn twist the emotional knife on Ahsoka, which he doesn't really do as strategy. He does once he's already won. And to me, it's one of the most fascinating Thrawn moments of he's about to jump to hyperspace. He doesn't need to necessarily call Ahsoka to twist the knife about you are everything your master was. Maybe it's better that a wild Ronin Jedi like you, which I think the subtext is a potential murderer, maybe it's best that you're behind. So the kind of emotional twist the knife that he might have used as strategy against Ahsoka is saved for gloating right before his victory. Maybe he's like, hey, I want to emotionally wound her, so if I ever threaten her again, she's unstable. But it is also just gloating before he wins. Ken, how do you feel about that Thrawn saved that sort of emotional twist of the knife of Anakin to the end, and that he made what I think is mostly a call just to gloat and say, good job, Ahsoka, but you failed, and I won. Ha ha, bye.
I almost have no memory of that moment in the show. So,
I was like, wait, what?
Yeah. I had checked out of a lot of the stuff he was doing. I got to be honest, and I do like that it's I consider that a crack in Thrawn of that's his way, not of slipping, but like you said, gloating is something that he doesn't allow himself to do because that's not the goal. So it does show what even Jen, you were talking about earlier, that there are a lot of things simmering underneath. He just knows how to either control them, doesn't know what to do with them, doesn't fully understand with them, but he understands that, and he understands that connection. So I do like that, and that's something I want him to carry forward as he goes back to the galaxy to do whatever he's going to do. Because step 1 survived, like you said. Step 2 will be, well, we're going to figure it out when we get there. And that I have believers there. Clearly, there's believers there that we can connect into. So it's a little, it is those favorite. Even going back to Rebels, some of the stuff like you mentioned, some of the stuff with the Bendu. I love the utter confusion on his face when the Bendu's pulling him in there, and so I think it's in that same category. Yeah, and it sounds like I'm making a joke, but it's just like there was so much going on in those final couple episodes that it's. Maybe that's why I need Thrawn to scream it next time versus whisper.
Yeah. Jennifer, I want to break this into a couple questions for you because I really want your thoughts. Were you expecting Thrawn to use his knowledge of Anakin more proactively against Ahsoka?
I don't know. I think that I wanted him to be a little bit more petty, which is kind of what you're saying happened, which I really do not remember that. I've watched this 3 times and I don't remember that. And I think that it's me kind of zoning out. I think because, and this is what I was trying to put my finger on. If you look at Star Wars villains, there definitely is a template for villains, right? I mean, look at Palpatine in the prequels. You can go that extreme, that dramatic, right? That corrupt politician. You obviously have the Emperor Palpatine that we know from the original trilogy. Mads Mikkelsen's character, even like a Dedra Meero from Andor, right? They're so deliciously evil. So, okay, we know that Thrawn is not going to be like that. Maybe he's going to be more the opposite extreme, right? I still feel like you can have more fun with Star Wars. You can amp it up a little bit. You could make it more like a Christoph Waltz character from Inglorious, was it Colonel Landa from Inglorious Bastards?
Yeah.
I don't like that. But, maybe a little bit more charming, narcissistic. I don't know. I think that would have helped me really like get more drawn in, because what was happening was I would get drawn in and then he would come on screen and I would kind of like zone out, and I'm tired. Let's just put that out there. I'm tired. So that doesn't help. And I'm really trying to focus. I have the subtitles on, I have my notes, and I'm just like,
he's Star Wars ASMR. He's Star Wars
right,
ASMR.
exactly.
Yes.
So I'm having to constantly go back. And what did he say? I literally wrote, I was like, what did he say? Okay, I'm writing it down. This is my problem, you guys. This is what I'm learning. This is my problem. So I don't know.
No, I mean,
this is
I
my
think I think it is, you know, I think we put on our analytical hats, but we also just put on our humans watching something hats. And does it naturally hook us? And I think what you are responding to is a very honest, it didn't naturally hook you. It didn't naturally make you lean forward. And I think for me, sometimes when we've talked about pacing, and it's always I'll caveat, I've got some criticisms of Ahsoka, but I know for other people, it entirely worked. So I'm not saying these are facts. I'm saying there's something that I experienced and maybe other people did. But I think that the pacing thing isn't about long scenes. The pacing thing is for me about like, it's musical. It's a metronome of speed and volume. And I think there are times where the Ahsoka show kept at a very sort of lyrical, beat by beat, volume by volume sort of tone. And for me, I like that there are scenes where I wanted it to have more dynamics and explode more, somebody get a little bit hotter under the collar. It's why I liked Ezra, because I think Ezra disrupted that tone. I think there are moments where Sabine disrupted that tone. I think Hu Yang disrupted that tone almost every time he had a real emotional. Chopper. Chopper wanting to do a violence disrupted that tone. For me, I was okay with that with Thrawn, because to me, that is his tone. It is he's the conductor, and he has a baton, and he is making everybody slow down to his tempo. So that tempo that bugged me in other parts of Ahsoka personally didn't bug me when it was Thrawn, but it sounds like as a viewer it affected you, Jennifer, that he was at that sort of measured, even tone, and so were his scenes.
Give him something to do. I mean, I don't know how much of his collection he has left, but just give him something to do so that he's like talking. Like, I'm just going immediately to the scenes with Andor, right, and Mon Mothma, and oh my gosh, Luthen, right? When he's like in his back room there, and he's just doing things. It just feels more, I don't know, I just get to see more of the character. I get more insight into the character when they're just living. And that's why I actually didn't mind the scenes early on with Sabine, you know, if we talked about like doing the puzzle or feeding her Lothcat, because it's giving insight into the character, and it's just giving these lived in moments. I don't mind that type of pacing, but with Thrawn, I felt like we didn't get enough of those lived in moments, which I would have liked.
Yeah, no, I can see that. I think for me, it also helped. This morning I went back and I watched just the Thrawn scenes. I just scrubbed through and I'm just focusing on Thrawn. And there's some moments that I enjoyed the first time around, some lines. And I think just scrubbing through and just really watching nothing but Lars Mikkelsen's performance made me really appreciate how many subtle moments he was taking of mostly the fear that the Jedi would win, deciding whether or not he wanted to bring someone into his confidence or explain himself more. I think he makes a lot of really great, really fascinating choices. But I think you have to like lean forward and be soup. And I'm sure people who love Thrawn were like, "What are you talking about? That's the first thing I saw because I love Thrawn, and that's all my eyes were on in that episode." So I'm sure these things were there for other people. I really appreciated them really just zeroing in on Thrawn and seeing those little moments.
You have to work a lot, and I don't mean that as a bad way. You have to work a lot to understand the man, right? Because one of the things we've talked about in the books, I don't remember Heir to the Empire series as much as the new Zons, where it's like you're never inside Thrawn's head. That's never written from that point of view. Not so much story is not told from that point of view. So much you have to pick up on those little things he does, the cracks, the breaks, and but what other people think of him. What other people say about Thrawn is what we know more than what Thrawn actually might be keeping in his close to his chest, which is totally fine for him, but it creates a little bit of work sometimes and maybe a little bit of distance. We're never going to get like the outtake, the BTS set photo of Lars in the Thrawn outfit smoking, I imagine that's what Thrawn's like in his downtime when no one's watching, just thinking about things. And so sometimes maybe, Jed, I'm with you to agree. It as different as it might be as a style and as a villain and setting his own kind of template, it can be a little frustrating where you just kind of like, here he goes again. He's never gonna let me inside. I'm never gonna. And so I don't know if that's exactly what you're feeling. I don't want to put words in your mouth, but that pops up every now and then for me.
Yes.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's a fascinating thing about this gloating scene. It's it's in the final episode when
It's one.
Ahsoka and Sabine are on the Jedi shuttle. They're racing to catch up, and he basically patches into the shuttle and just like, you tried, you are. I know who you are because I know your master, and really valiant, well fought. You almost got me. You didn't. It's not underlined, right? There isn't a character there to go like, Thrawn, we're ready to jump. What's the holdup? Why are you taking the time to do this? There isn't something there isn't an underline for us that there might be in other scripts. But for me, if you analyze the character, like, this is a man who is in this whole series has been crystal clear on time is our most valuable asset. We need to win it from them, and we need to jump. All I care about is hitting that button and making the jump. In the last 30 seconds before I can do that, I'm going to call up this Jedi and tell her why I beat her ass. It is a character moment for me. Either a fear that he's not done confronting her and wants to wound her for future conflicts, or just I do have pride. I am a narcissist. Now that victory is in my hand, I'm going to take a moment to tell someone, I beat you, is a character moment for me. Yeah. Whether or not it pops for everybody is an interesting question.
Regardless of it pop for me this last go around, I think you're absolutely right. It is one of those moments. It is one of those, and that's almost a Robot Chicken sketch. Hold on, I got to make a call. Like why? Like what? But I do like what you're saying. I really buy into that's there and that's present.
Yeah, sir. She knows you beat her. Like, yes, but I want her to know why. So we're going to take a break in a moment and talk a little bit about Thrawn's future, but I did also just want to have an opportunity to highlight any favorite Thrawn lines or moments. Ken, did you have any favorite Thrawn lines or moments?
Loved him struggling ever so slightly to work the Microsoft Surface that he had that was handed to him. It wasn't an iPad; it was a Microsoft Surface, sponsor of the NFL. Where you're just like, he's like, wonderful meme opportunities for Brian Ward. I love that. But you mentioned one of my favorite little subtle moments. The great mothers that must kind of call on you again. It's really interesting because we know some of his history with things that he can't fully understand, the Jedi and their magical space wizard ways, and the fact that he found this out here, and it was a tip of the iceberg thing for me. I'm sure it wasn't necessarily an easy decision, back at step one on Peridia. However he survived, however he runs into them, however. It might have been he had to convince them to help him, but I wonder how much convincing he had to do himself. And so the fact that there was a chilling angle to that moment in that line, and I like that a lot of the engaging with Sabine and no, go find Ezra. I make a deal, I stick to it. That's the Thrawn that we know and love to hate, and that was present.
Yeah, no, I really like that too. I really like his lines aren't delivered. It is over the top as my beloved Palpatine can be, but they were written in a very pulpy way, which I really appreciated. Yeah, the great mothers, I shall once again require the aid of your dark magic. Yeah. It's a pulpy way to describe it, and it is also like to me like such an acceptance. What a difference between what Jedi devilry, what bonkers, dumb, not practical, magical BS is this to, I understand magical BS is actually quite important.
Yeah.
And I'm going to get me some, and I'm going to respect it. It is so clear in that his first line, what was first just a dream has become a frightening reality for those that may oppose us. It's a very pulpy, over the top line. The desire to be united with your long lost friend, how that singular focus will reshape our galaxy. So I do like it when he even if he's not sort of ranting, he does speak in a little bit more of a pulpy, larger, villainous way. Jennifer, any beats that you particularly noted?
That is interesting. The text. So I like the moment when he tells Morgan and Elsbeth that the Jedi may board the ship, which would be, and he takes a slight pause, problematic. I love that. That to me was like the glimmer of kind of what I was searching for. I really felt what he was feeling. Even in the most dire circumstances, he remains calm and collected.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Final thing for me is I really think if you watch it through, really keeping your eye on Thrawn, I think it is played very subtly, at least at a 4, as you're saying, Jennifer. But I think there is a through line of true fear, anger, animosity toward the Jedi, toward the existence of them. Mm-hmm. There's the Balin Skull of the Jedi Order. There's that the Jedi would be problematic. When the Great Mothers report to him that Ahsoka survived, there's real like, this is unfortunate. It's more than just this is a problem that maybe he can't handle, and he feels the pain and the wound. He's got that good, just little saucy dig at them when Ahsoka is hiding in the graveyard, the Purgle Bone graveyard. He says Jedi are very good at hiding. They've been practicing that for years. That's practically him doing like a roast of the Jedi. For him, that's a Comedy Central roast. Yeah. And then my final favorite thing I wanted to share along those Jedi line is there is that, I think his biggest moment is he knows Ahsoka and Sabine and Ezra are doing the ground assault. He's prepared for it. He's got the layers of defense with the Night Sisters and ready to send Morgan Elsbeth to her death. And he's still afraid they'll get through. And when they get through and get into the door of the temple, there's a cut to him and his lip curls, and like Thrawn is actually shook. It's small, but he is actually upset, concerned, angry that he has to deal with the potential that they might stop him. Even his line about the ordering the firing on him, he says, rain hellfire on them, which is also for him, like, not just like, forward cannons, 100%. It's rain hellfire on them. Yeah. It delivered at a 4, but the actual text is an 11.
Right.
Yeah. I agree with that.
Any other Thrawn moments that you want to highlight, or shall we take a quick break?
No, take a break. I was going to say, I do like the chanting, but is that a Thrawn moment or a Night Trooper moment? We'll let the gods decide.
I think it's perhaps a Night Trooper moment that Thrawn benefits from. And we did, I screwed up in the show notes. We should recommend a book. Ken, do you have a book that you'd like to recommend?
I do, unless you had, Jen, did you want to jump in there? It sounds like you were excited for a book recommendation.
No, I just was like, oh yeah, books.
Books are good. That's right. I'll be on an airplane flight. Will I actually read a book like I always tell myself, or just fall asleep? We'll find out. But I'd like to recommend a book that came out in October, and I kind of missed that it did, and I want to catch up. It is Crimson Climb by E.K. Johnston, the story of Kira post-Solo, perhaps leading up to the comics. I don't know, because I haven't read it yet, but you can try it on us by going to Audible, going to audibletrial.com/ForceCenter. Once again, that's audibletrial.com/ForceCenter. Try that book, help the show out, and help your ears indeed. That is our ForceCenter recommends.
That is great. I can't wait to check that one out myself. Got a big pile of books to catch up on. We're going to take a quick break, and then we're going to talk about the future of Thrawn.
Welcome back here to ForceCenter. We are on the big show, the main show, the Super Star Destroyer of Thrawn's fleet, which is down to 1, and it's broken, but it's still got the tattoo, and it's got some loyal zombie troopers. Joseph, we're going to continue our look at Thrawn Unleashed.
Yeah, so in the Ahsoka series, Thrawn clearly functions as the big bad, the major threat. It's clear that he wants to return from exile and that he intends to wage war on the New Republic. It's horrible news for those that oppose us that he's coming back. So his immediate goals are very clear. But what do you think, either from the Ahsoka series, from books, from your personal gut feeling of who Thrawn is, what do you think his deeper wants are? Is it still to ultimately defend and protect his people, the Chiss ascendancy? Is it something more personal? Ken, why do you think Thrawn wants to wage war on the New Republic?
I think there's some sort of revenge tour about to happen. And I think he is upset that he ended up here. He ended up on the sidelines. Well, and here's, I guess by this point, I'm just asking. I don't know this answer. Does he know what happened? Because Ezra just got the download. Is Thrawn like, I'm going to go, is Palpatine here? What?
I think that it feels to me like the Great Mothers might have some amount of vision.
Right?
Yeah.
Okay.
I don't think they're like, Vader threw him down a shaft because Luke was nice to his dad. Like, I don't think they have the play-by-play, but like, it feels like the Great Mothers would be aware, like, a darkness is in recession, you know?
Yeah. No, asked, answered. I kind of agree with you on that there, but to his ultimate goal, I think there's, and this, I don't want to go total negative conversation here, but I think he wants to come back right now in my mind to dominate, to rule the galaxy, and I'm waiting because I know there's got to be more. So I'm waiting for that to be explained, not more directly, just in your face, and here's the text, but just I'd love to see the example of what he really wants to do, because hanging over it is this Chiss ascendancy. Now, we did not finish the series that involved his beloved Chiss, so I don't know the end. I'll Wikipedia it, everybody. Comment down below how much you hate that I didn't read the books. Is he upset with them? Why did they come find me? Are they around to be saved? Did the Grisk win? I don't know those answers. And here's the thing. I don't think it matters, right? You can't upload all that right now to a TV and film viewing audience, I don't think. And this now goes beyond your question, Joseph, to just the practicalities. This is why I think there's not two different Thrawns. There's book series that understands and it helps you understand and explain more of Thrawn and his story. But right now, I to me, and that's why a lot of people will read you got to read the books. You'll understand he's not evil. He's not evil. And I'm like, but on screen, he's hanging out with Palpatine at parties. They're having tea together. He's helping Space Hitler, and I don't care how much he's helping his people. He's chosen poorly to me. So right now, that boils down to your question is, I think he just wants to dominate and win for his reasons that we're going to understand or hope to one day understand. And I'd like to see him do it in some certain ways, like I was hinted at earlier. But for right now, what does he want to come back to do? To win.
Yeah. Jennifer, how do you feel about what his personal or strategic motivation is in waging war against the Republic and in reinstating a version of the Empire?
What I think is interesting is if you have no knowledge of him and you see that moment where he says, for the Empire, you're going to think, oh, he's for the Empire, right? You're not going to know about his Chiss people or anything like that. So that is a moment where and they would have had to include it in something, some sort of dialogue, right? They would have had to give that backstory. Or I don't know, like when he delivers the line, layer it. Like we saw this in Game of Thrones, going back to Game of Thrones, so much where people are saying one thing, but you know that there's something else is going on and they're actually fighting for a different allegiance. I don't know. There's a lot of backstabbing going on. I kind of, if he's not for the Empire and he is doing this for his own purpose, I kind of would have liked to see that layered underneath. This is where I'm like, are they clear?
Mala's right.
Thank you, Mala. Are they clear with his motivations? Did Dave Filoni tell Lars Mikkelsen, here's your character's motivations? That's incredibly important as an actor to know, who are you really? Why are you doing all this? Why do you care? The why, the why. So I'm hoping that somebody knows the why, and maybe they're going to set it up in another season.
Yeah, this is all fascinating because I think for the sake of people who've never read any Thrawn books or comics, just watched him in Rebels and in Ahsoka, his function is he is a true believer of the Empire. And we accept lots of, Imperial characters that we meet as true believers. I think for me, what makes me want more is Thrawn is and has always been a more complex character. That it's easy to accept Piet or even Krennic. Krennic we kind of understand is this sort of like middle management. I want my pride. I want my glory. So there's even something a little bit personal. But he's a true believer. His when Galen says to him that line about you're confusing order with terror, and he's like, well, you got to start somewhere. You get that he's a person of apathy, and just like, I only care about how this benefits me. So I guess Krennic we get a little bit more. And I think Thrawn absolutely could totally function as just like a true believer in authoritarian rule. His mind is extremely ordered, and he is one of those persons who truly believes the trains should run on time. I can make the trains run on time, and your petty freedoms where you want to all have different train schedules on different planets, I'm going to impose my will on you that the galaxy should be very, very ordered, and I'm the one who can order it. That's personal up to a point, because that's him taking, whereas Palpatine just wants power for himself. That's Thrawn taking his worldview, that emotions are messy, conflicting interests are messy, find out what people need, manipulate them just enough so that they give you what you want, which is order, and keep it all ordered. I think that would be a fine character. I think that would be great to dive into. I believe this is the way the galaxy should be. So I would be fine if it stopped there, but I also do want to get under the surface and feel that he just believes that. I want to talk more about his motivations from the books, but I first want to just ask you both, how do you feel about that? How do you feel about him being a true believer in rigid order, which I don't think even Palpatine is? That's a lie that Palpatine says, oh, I'm bringing you order. He's like, haha, what I'm bringing you is my thumb on all of you. I'm bringing domination, and I'm calling it order. But Thrawn, I think, actually believes in order. What do you think about that, Ken?
Yeah, no, that's very intriguing, because just in terms of Palpatine, we know the lie, right? Safe and secure society. Meanwhile, crime's up, marauders are up, violence is up, death is up. I don't care. I got the power, unlimited power. That's what I want. So and what a general sweeping overview look at the rise of Palpatine. But you know what I mean. But what you're saying makes Thrawn different. And again, I don't need this in direct dialogue, and wouldn't have expected it so far on his journey into live action. But that he looks around and goes, there is space pirates. Oh, there is marauders. Crime is on the rise. I don't like that, because that's not order either. So how do we do this? I'll learn what you need. I'll learn what you want. Then I'll use it against you, and I will rule. I will rule because I like order. That only thing that I want to know why he himself would want to sit in the chair. Is that just so he can ensure the order? I'm not questioning it. I'm not saying this is a negative. I'm just like, why doesn't he also just want to just go off to his home and retire in Chiss Town? You know what I mean? What's driving him to, like, I so believe in order, and I still want to give you all order in the way that I want. That I want to sit here on this throne, so to speak, forever. That could be what's chilling.
That exact point is why I hope they bring the Chiss into it. I don't think they need to get into a complex backstory of the Chiss's war with the Grisk. I think just that, like, I came, my people are off in the unknown regions. I came to this part of the galaxy to kind of make a deal with the Empire of help them dominate the galaxy, and when the time is right, they'll help my people. And then I was doing that. That was going great. Then I got exiled. Now I come back. I've never been a toady to the Emperor or Vader. I've handled them. And I know that Palpatine knew that I was handling him, and we had a mutual, we're beneficial to each other. Great. But now there's no Palpatine. There's no Vader. I, Thrawn, have never been a toady. And now I have no one to be a toady to. I am going to take this galaxy for my people. And all you would really need to know is I have people that I come from. And now there's no Emperor, there's no Vader, there's no one to compete for being in charge of this. I'm going to put the entire galaxy in order. I'm going to gift wrap this part of the galaxy that we've been fighting over for my people. And maybe it even is like a Chiss domination. I'm going to hand this galaxy to the Chiss. And I don't think you need to know a complex backstory. I think all you need to know is I have a people, and everything I've ever done is to ensure their safety. And I'm going to bring this galaxy under control and give it to my people. Or this part of the galaxy and give it to my people. I would love that, because I think it just makes him more complex. It makes him very different from Emperor Vader. But I think there is a possibility that he is just sort of like a true believer, big bad, and we don't get into that depth. But I just think it's leaving a lot of the character on the table to not get into that.
I really agree with that, and Jen, definitely want to get your thoughts on that there. Sorry to jump back in, but I really agree with that, and that I think there's still time. We'll talk about the exact, literal future episodes, shows, whatever. It just seems, in terms of not just live action, I don't even remember it me mention that much in Rebels. I bet there's some folks out there who are like, "What's a chiss?" And I'm not saying that as a joke or cutting them down, who are just like, because I had friends who were engaged in Rebels who text me during Ahsoka. They're like, "Wait a minute, Ahsoka was trained by Anakin," and I'm not doing it as a joke. I'm just doing it as this is the reality of the viewing audience. There's a lot of information out there because what you're saying is that's some depth, and that could be in keeping with what we know of him. He does that. Everyone else, there's the Chiss, and everyone else are assets that I use to help the Chiss. That's one of his big things. That's why people might argue, well, he's actually good. But and I even think he realizes that good people don't do that. Thrawn does this. I do that. But I don't know if it's too late. I don't think that's the correct answer. But I would have loved already some of it could have been layered in. I don't. But also as I'm thinking. Sorry, rambling. But it's like there wouldn't be any point in this Ahsoka series where he's like, "Let me tell you about the Chiss." Like what? No, there's too much going on.
Right.
There's too much going on. It wouldn't work.
I think that's why I like these little hints of seeing the cracks in his shell and seeing that this is personal to him. He does not like being exiled. And when he gets back, it's bad news for anybody who opposes him. He's not just like, got to get back, see how my people are doing. He's like, no, I'm bringing the thunder. And that makes it personal and I think opens the door to getting into more depth. Jennifer, how do you feel about introducing at all just the idea of he doesn't look like your standard Imperial officer, and audiences who haven't read books or comics don't know where he comes from and that he has other people he cares about. Do you want that introduced at all, or do you feel like that gets too complex?
It needs to be set up where he is on the same level of a Palpatine and a Vader, right? I think that what happens is that when you're watching this, especially if you have no knowledge of him, you may think of him more like a Krennic or a Hux. And especially for the Empire, right? He's not like that. He's not like those guys. So there's no desperation, right? Which is what I immediately think of with the other two.
Yeah.
A layer of desperation. So I think that it, I don't want to say it's too late, like you're saying, Ken, but I do feel, I love the idea of him being driven by law and order. And that could be a really interesting storyline, motivation to ramp up. And it could make it even more complex where we see, well, I kind of would like him to be a little bit more likable as a villain. I think that's why he on paper in the books is so interesting, is because people do see him as like, well, I do see what he's doing there. Okay, yeah, he hangs out with the bad guys, but he may have a point, right? I think that could be something really great to play with. I don't know if we're going to get that in the next season of Ahsoka. It is Ahsoka. So he would have to really, I mean, he could maybe be in a lot of episodes, but it's just so much material to bring, and how it's like they've done such a great job at bringing the things from the books into animated shows and live action. But this is one that is a big challenge, I think.
Yeah. I just think it is a challenge. I also just think it's an opportunity to
yes
to make him. I think the thing that I'm bumping against is he's not he's not a toady. He's not just like a true believer in Palpatine's empire. If he wins, he's not erecting a statue of Palpatine unless it's a manipulation. Even with Moff Gideon, we had the clarity that this was just like kind of narcissism of he's a conqueror and he took the Mandalorians and he beat them and he can take their culture and it's his now because they're weaker than him. That was all narcissism. So we understood truly where he's coming from. And I want that from Thrawn because I feel like somebody watching Ahsoka might just think, oh, he's no different than he's a much better version of Admiral Piet. He's a true believer. And there's more, and I want more. Yes.
I agree, because I'm even saying when I say it's too late, I don't think that's not right. It's never too late.
Right.
It's just how, and I'm trying to look at it from someone who just doesn't know Thrawn like others do, including us. and how best to do that. Luckily, I don't, out of my pay range, pay scale, as they say, to figure it out. Because it would be really interesting to me, other than, hey, I'm going to come back. Why? To kick ass. Like, sure. And why everyone is Mothma's afraid? Like, why?
Yeah, right. He's the grandmaster strategist. Yes.
Yeah.
Absolutely. And to be clear, I don't think that they should have or needed to work the Chiss into Ahsoka. I think for me, this is about thinking forward. Mm-hmm. And we'll talk a little bit now about where he might show up. So many fans feel that Thrawn is being set up to be the big bad of Filoni's film. That I think is many people believe that. I don't think that has been confirmed out of the mouths of anyone working for Lucasfilm. Filoni's film was described by StarWars.com as focusing on the New Republic and closing out the interconnected stories told in The Mandalorian, The Book of Boba Fett, Ahsoka, and other Disney Plus series. So, what is your feeling, Ken, right now? Do you feel like Filoni's film is building to be an adaptation, even a very loose one, of Heir to the Empire? This is the New Republic versus Thrawn's almost successful Imperial remnant taking back the galaxy.
I think so, right? And I want to try to think of another option for him to check down to, and I don't think one exists yet. We'll put a pin in the conversation around the Night Sisters, but he's obviously been a fan of those books. He's pulled for them in so many ways. Thrawn, Rook coming back, but and I've never believed that it would be an exact, and it's certainly not what you're suggesting. Like, this is Dark Force Rising, this is The Last Command. Nah. But it's definitely intriguing. It works because of the New Republic being in this unstable era. They're not on solid ground. I'm so intrigued by we've got this great victory, but can we keep that momentum going forward, or are choices and decisions going to just lead to bigger problems, bigger wars? And history in our own world has proven it usually leads to wars. Like, for all intents and purposes, Vietnam War began in the late 40s and 50s. Like, it just the political situation and all that stuff going on. So I'm intrigued by that, and I think they've done such a good job with how many times have the three of us and other friends I know texted me, "What the hell's up with the New Republic, man? Seems like a bunch of bleeps." Like, I think Thrawn is the perfect villain for that scenario, based on a lot of the things we're hoping for, maybe wanting, and that's not always the best way to look at these stories. Just see what's there. But it seems like Filoni understands that. It seems like he knows, as he's looking at the landscape and getting a chance to kind of go back. Force Awakens comes in and establishes the First Order, all these things, and he gets to go kind of play in these open areas of the timeline. Thrawn makes the most sense to me.
Yeah. How do you feel, Jennifer? Do you feel like this is what Thrawn is being set up for, being placed on the chessboard to be the big villain of the finale of this New Republic era?
I think so. Yes. I think that there might be some other threats, maybe to him or to the New Republic. I don't know if I feel like it's not just going to be him, or if it is going to be him, we need to build this out a little bit so that people really get to understand why he is this big threat for the casual viewers. I don't know. I think that they could just go weirder with it. Bring the Isla Mary, whatever they're called. Right? Let's bring it. Bring it.
I'm out.
Yeah.
Yep. I think I feel like it is heading toward this big conflict between the New Republic and the Imperial Remnant, and Thrawn is being set up to be the really effective leader of that. It could be on an even emotional level. One of the things I love about Thrawn in the books is, instead of leading with fear and intimidation, he leads his ships by setting challenges and offering rewards and giving people gold stars when they do well. And I think that's what makes fans of Thrawn sympathetic to him sometimes, because it was like, if I worked at Subway and he was my manager, I would just love Thrawn. He's a really good manager. It's just that he doesn't work at Subway. He works at galacticdomination.com, So I think there is room to have some sort of not just military prowess, but sort of argument to the galaxy, better made than than the client did or Moff Gideon did, of like, I can bring all of this chaos to an end and give you all gold stars. So I think he is positioned in a character way to do that. I also just think that we should be careful as fans to not get so excited about the sort of the heir to the Empire that we don't remember everything that the Mandoverse has been setting up. I feel like if there's one big theme connecting Mandalorian, Boba Fett, Ahsoka, it's change. It's this idea of our heroes keep arguing for, can we please break the cycle? Can we please avert war and conflict and work together and have peace? Everything from Hera's speech in Ahsoka to Garsa Fwip's speech to Chrysanthemum to, you know, the pirate Vane just straight up saying to Grief Karga, this used to be a cantina. You can't make it a school. I won't let you change. Right. So I feel like they're building that to, if this movie is the culmination of that storytelling, I feel like Thrawn is going to have to represent no, we can't change. The Imperial Order is coming back, period. And I feel like the movie is probably going to have this sort of bittersweet idea of Thrawn is defeated, the Imperial Remnant is defeated at a high cost, and setting up the galaxy to be what we see in The Force Awakens, which is basically our world between the two world wars of, it's quite obvious that Hitler is a problem, but we just had a war called the War to End All Wars, and so we're going to go la 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 and just, you know, give the crazy yelly guy a little bit of what he wants and it'll be fine.
Take half of Poland and that's it, right?
That's all you need, right? Let's be reasonable. Give him half.
Stalin
Poland.
will take the other half. We're good.
It's fine. It's fine. Yeah, this whole idea of appeasement, I think, is so at the heart of the way Force Awakens is set up, and I think that's what's going on with the New Republic, setting up a world where this push to defeat Thrawn hurts, and people are like, we're just going to, if any other Imperial remnant comes up, we're just going to put our fingers in our ears and go la 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 la, which is already what's happening with Thrawn in this era.
Yeah.
So it's interesting to see how that will all affect Thrawn. I do want to touch on the Night Sisters. So if Thrawn is the big bad of the Filoni film, do you think the Night Sisters will play into it, or are they destined for their own different adventures? That was one of the biggest surprises of Ahsoka, that the Night Sisters Resurgent was set up with all of those boxes of Night Sister remains. Jennifer, how do you feel about the Night Sisters' future and if it's tied to Thrawn?
I love the Night Sisters. I love them. And so for me, I had such high expectations, and I felt like they were just a tool for Thrawn. And I didn't like that, actually. I didn't like that. I like that they have their own agency. So I hope that we see more of them. I believe we're going to see more of them. I mean, here's the thing, is that when they appear in the Clone Wars, those episodes are scary. I feel like the episodes in the animated series are scarier than how they were in the live action. So I want to push it more. Basically, you guys, I'm a drama queen. Let's just put that out there. I love the drama, the melodrama. And I want to see more of their dark magic. I want to see more of them being not as like, I don't know. Just being more, not duplicitous, but just like they have their own thing going on. And yeah, they're going to help. But do they really, like, they have their own agenda, right?
Yeah.
Maybe that's because of Mother Talzin and all that. So again, my judgment is being a bit biased.
I love seeing all of their pulpy dark magic and Morgan Elsbeth's journey. Morgan Elsbeth, you know, Thrawn saying for the Empire and her saying no for Dathomir. One of my favorite beats in the entire Ahsoka series. And I feel like, again, maybe I'm reading into it, but I really like that scene where we're seeing that the ship is going straight to Dathomir, and those Night Sisters and the Great Mothers are going to Dathomir. And Thrawn is kind of looking over it. And to me, there's some ambivalence of like, well, the Great Mothers and I made an arrangement that worked for us. I woke them up. I got them neither of us could get back to where we wanted to be without one another. And now that moment for Thrawn of like, am I looking out over my cool, great Night Sister army, or am I about to be stabbed in the back? Can I make my way out of this? And that to me is one of the most interesting tensions, because yes, the Night Sisters we know have their own needs, their own wants, their own ambitions. I don't think the Great Mothers are just going to turn around and go, what else do you need of us, Thrawn?
Right.
They have what they want. Night Sisters resurgent on Dathomir. And is that going to align with Thrawn? Is Thrawn going to say, I need to take back the galaxy. I have a bunch of toady admirals who survived and broken down old stormtroopers. If you help me overthrow the New Republic, I'll give you half of Poland. I'll give you half of. What do you want? You can have whatever you want in my new regime, and they'll stay together. Or will it be immediate like, thanks, Thrawn, and here come the fiery knives for Thrawn himself. That's what's fascinating to me. Ken?
Yeah. I really loved this Night Sister wrinkle, and I admit to, and I don't know at what point Morgan Elsbeth was a Night Sister, right? Was it from day one on a cocktail napkin that Dave sketched something, or was it down the line? You know, I don't care. I just love the end result. I love that reveal. I love in the trailer when we all saw, wait, is that green? Is that, whoa, what, is she a witch? I really love this stuff because how much they leaned into it in Clone Wars. You're right, Jen. It's some of the best stuff. It's a horror film. Powerful themes and lessons. Dooku and Palpatine destroying them and turning on them, and Asajj, and they do that hug with Mother Talzin is a sense of home and community, and you've always got the sense that the Night Sisters kind of, hear me out here, kind of want to be, hey, we're just gonna be over here doing our thing, but that also might be because they've been overlooked, they've been misused, they've been destroyed. So what do they really want now? And now that the Great Mothers have a chance to maybe rewrite some history here, going for, or not rewrite history, but change history for themselves, as they go forward. I really am intrigued by that, and talk about pulling things from old legend stuff. The Night Sisters being pulled forward into what, Courtship of Princess Leia, Truce of Bakura, that era.
Yes.
And pulling them into Clone Wars has been great. And so to pick up the thread here now, then my final thought on this too, in a story that might lack the Star Wars Jedi versus Sith trope, to have the Night Sisters fill that void in a way of the dark magic, what are they using it for, all those kind of things. That's just intriguing for me as well. I think one of the big victories of the series was the Night Sisters being on full live action display.
Totally agreed. And Filoni had a quote in one of those, I believe, Anthony Bresnikan, mini articles that he talking about the New Republic conflict with the Imperial Remnant, and that needed to look different and be different. It couldn't just be the same. And that made me feel like, that's making me feel like Thrawn is going to offer the Night Sisters something, going like, I know you're not just loyal to me. What do you want? What do you need? Because it would be really cool to have a big budget live action movie where Ezra is leading, a team of Force sensitives against an army of Night Sisters. So saying, yeah, Mother Talzin tried to just sort of smooth things over with Sidious, and she got slaughtered for it. The Night Sisters aren't just hanging out on Dathomir. We're taking what's ours. It would be great.
Yeah.
Riding a Rancor. Yeah.
Riding a Rancor, yeah.
Riding a Rancor. And then bring back Boba Fett to be like, I learned it too. And they fight Rancor. And,
oh my gosh.
That's what's meant by bringing all the threads together.
Action figure dreams in my action figure dreams.
Just a couple more Thrawn questions here. If Thrawn is indeed the major villain of this Filoni film, do we hope or expect to see him in other Disney Plus shows? We got Mandalorian season 4. Who knows? He could be menacing the children in Skeleton Crew for all we know. Second season of Ahsoka, we don't know what that would be. Or is this fine? He's exactly where he needs to be, and he can pop up in the movie. Ken, how do you feel?
I hear you like space Turkish delight. Let me intrigue you. This is where I don't mean this to sound internety, YouTubey, Angry Gang Car. This is where I think they need to do keep setting him up for me. I don't think he's movie ready, And I don't want him to be movie ready because I think even just what we discussed here, even just the politics of it. Why is Mothma scared? Why? Who in the galaxy is like, you know what? Yeah, you're right. It is not the order that I'd like. Check the crime rates in Coruscant. They're going up. They're going up. That's all intriguing. So I do want him to appear. Skeleton Crew doesn't seem to be the right spot. We don't know quite yet, but doesn't seem to be the right spot. Mando season 4, you know, the only thing we know about it is it might be kind of Rangers of the New Republic-y, you know, but that's not been stated anywhere. That's just kind of what we think. So I think I want to know why we're fighting them just a little bit more. And I mean that in terms of that's exciting to find out.
Yeah, I think that the whole, you know, the Rangers of the New Republic announcement and then what weird floating quotes about those stories are being wrapped up into other things. I think what we do have in a concrete way is, you know, Din goes to Carson Teva at the end of Mandalorian season 3 and basically says, like, I need work,
right?
But I want to take just work. So if you got any Imperial problems, slip them my way. So Din is sort of set up to be Carson Teva's personal Imperial stomping machine, which feels to me like there's very much room to show Grand Admiral Thrawn's efforts to unite the Imperial remnants. Because it seems like Carson Teva could send Din and Grogu on a mission that unravels and exposes this bigger problem. That leads us, if not to Thrawn in person, to Thrawn's machinations. So I think Mandalorian season 4 is a possibility. Jen, how do you feel? Do you want him to pop up in other seasons, or do you want him to just jump out live in theaters?
I was trying to look up right now Mando season 3 because there was an episode that I really loved. I think it was directed by Bryce Dallas Howard, and it just felt so different. It was like one lone episode. Oh my gosh, you guys, my memory.
With the Jack Black Lizzo episode?
No, I know. Maybe it was.
I like that one.
Anyways, the point is that I think Mando season 4, they could do one episode with Thrawn, really focusing it on him. And you can do a lot. I mean, look at the Luke episode in The Mandalorian. They did so much with that. So I think that could really, like you're saying, Ken, I don't know if he's not ready for prime time just yet. I'd like to get a little bit more, right? And introduce him to people and introduce him to us so we kind of know like what's going on.
You're describing some sort of party where Din's gonna walk in and everyone's like, hey, this is my friend Thrawn, everybody. But no, I agree with you. Could you imagine a Din and Thrawn scene? Just the most quietest lo-fi ASMR scene in Star Wars history.
Love it.
I think since Carson Teva has been a true believer, he was included in Ahsoka. Maybe the mission of the season that Din likes to go around and tell everybody what he's doing is maybe Carson Teva says, we know Thrawn made it back. He needs to be found. And he could be going around the galaxy saying, like, I'm on a mission to find this blue bad man. There's lots of discussion about Ahsoka season 2. I'm going to put a thought out there, and then I'm curious what both of you think. I think just because we're introduced to Thrawn in live action in Ahsoka, I don't feel like he's necessarily set up for an Ahsoka season 2. I feel like, for myself, a season 2 of Ahsoka, I would want to be dealing with the other galaxy. I would want it to be Baylan, Shin, and the Marauders. There's that kind of feeling of Ahsoka and Sabine are where they need to be. So why is it a return to Mortis? I feel like there's so much story that could just be that other galaxy. I question whether Ahsoka's even going to make it back. And B, like, I think before the end of the Ahsoka series, I kind of thought like, Ahsoka might really take a leadership role in this movie against Thrawn. But now it almost feels like this idea of Ezra's where he needs to be to oppose Thrawn, and Ahsoka's where she needs to be heading toward the whispers of Mortis. Feels to me like Ahsoka's on a different path. Ken, how do you feel about all that?
Yeah, it makes me think of a Traveling Wilburys song, Heading for the Light. Yeah, I really think you just put a really fine point on it for me. Who is Thrawn's rival? It's Ezra. It's Ezra.
Mhm.
And the sense of it's something close to Dave's Jedi lore, love and heart. That's the Twin Sons episode we've broken down here so many times, and we'll probably do it again. Ezra, you're not supposed to be here. I, Obi-Wan, am supposed to be here with Maul, and my reasons for being here. You need to. That's what the Force is about here, right? That's what you got to find out, where your journey really takes you. And I think Ezra versus Thrawn is the X versus Sever of the Star Wars galaxy that we're going to get. But man, and this is a rewatch appreciation for me more than even the first time through Ahsoka. All the players you're talking about, Shin holding the blade hide up, and the Marauders going, "She gonna kill us or rule us?" Balin, God rest you, Ray Stevenson. Man, I'll see what they do with that. I'll be open to a recasting because I think the character is valuable. There's so much more to explain with Balin. I think we just scratched the surface of that wonderful character. And then Ahsoka and Sabine. I don't think that's Sabine's final spot. I'm not even predicting that that's Ahsoka's final spot, because I can also see this is real world, but Dave going, "I'm doing a movie. Ahsoka's going to be around." Like but going forward to a season 2, I really think you're right. That's Ahsoka and Peridia.
The ending of Ahsoka made me feel like when I collected action figures as a kid and was truly playing with them. And as I said before, my brother and I were kind of obsessive about creating an actual narrative. There's like, you needed at least a hero, a sidekick, a villain, and a trooper. And now you got a story you can play with your action figures. And it really felt like Peridia, this other galaxy, had like, that's enough action figures to start a new franchise right there. You got with all those different people and their needs. Yeah.
Really,
so
really sound like Carl Weathers going, "You got yourself a soup.
you got yourself action figure stew," and I love it. Any other thoughts about Thrawn in this Ahsoka series or his future for you, Jennifer?
I think that he's going to have to be introduced at the end of season 2 for Ahsoka. I think you're right about the whole storyline with Ahsoka and Sabine. That could Mortis. Oh my gosh, there's so much to mine there alone. That if they introduce him again towards the end of the series again, it could set us up to a cliffhanger for the movie.
Yeah, nice. Ken, any final thoughts for you about Thrawn in Ahsoka or his future, or just strong feelings about Thrawn?
I'm always going to have some strong feelings for Thrawn or about Thrawn and for Thrawn. You're like the guy. And sometimes they're going to push into the negative. Sometimes Thrawn is not my favorite Star Wars character and has not been historically. But even talking today, there's a lot of opportunity. You sound like an NFL coach, Joseph. Adversity is actually opportunity, and that's the big truth going forward with this character. And I am excited where we're at. I really love this stuff as it's all coming together. You're also getting me excited. Like, there's no way in 7 hells that we are not going to see Mortis in live action if Dave Filoni is involved. And I'm not just talking about his position that he has now, the new business card. I'm talking about if he's telling these stories. We're pushing there. That's what Whitworth's not coming back as gay, the Star Wars Unleashed, Force Unleashed guy, a Star Killer. He's coming back as the son in some form to me. Like, that's where you're going to see it, and I think that's where we're pushing. So and so it's exciting stuff. It's fertile ground going forward.
Yeah, no, I'm very excited to follow this new set of action figures, which I absolutely love. And for Thrawn, like overall, like I feel like there were 1 or 2 things where I would love to have just made the audience viscerally feel how great he was as a master strategist. I think he was put across well as a character. We get that's who he is, and that's why he's dangerous, because he thinks different and better than Imperial toadies. I think maybe we didn't feel like we did in Rebels some moments of true pain from characters that we care about because of his master strategy success. And I think many people would disagree and think that the fact that he won was painful to Ahsoka and Sabine, and that they were separated from Ezra once again was painful. So I can understand people disagreeing. But for me, I really like the character. I like Lars Mikkelsen. I feel like he has a potential to go, if not from a 4, to at least a 7 in terms of getting under the skin, showing those fears, those paranoia that he has about the Jedi, and getting a little deeper into the why without getting too deep into ancient Thrawn lore. I think the potential is there, and I'm excited for it.
I agree.
Here's the actual last question. Ken, if Thrawn was your buddy and he could help you solve one problem, what would you ask him for help with?
YouTube algorithm.
I imagine that driving him bonkers of like, well, there's no order to it. It changes every Tuesday.
Just looking at his here, you're looking at the iPad. This doesn't make sense. It's too emotional.
Was it trained by Anakin Skywalker? The algorithm was trained by overly emotional Jedi. For myself, I think one of the things that I think is really fascinating about him that is drawn out in the books, I think it's there in Rebels. I think it could come out even more in live action. Of he himself is not an incredibly emotional character, but he's very observant about what emotions lead other people to do, figuring out like, oh, they're headstrong and stubborn, so they always act like this. They are very sensitive, so they always act like this. I would want Thrawn, when I have to pitch a movie or a television show, I would want Thrawn to deep dive and study executives for me and say ahead of time, this executive greenlights movies out of fear. So you must frighten this executive. That would be very helpful to me. Jennifer, how would you ask Thrawn for help?
I see him as like a child psychologist who does Instagram videos talking about how it's important to talk calmly to your child, and just because they're emotional doesn't mean that you have to get emotional. Like, I just watched one this morning and I was like, okay, it's really difficult to do, but I bet Thrawn could do it.
That is great. Ken, you want to let people know where they can find us?
Absolutely. You can find us on Twitter /X and Threads and even Hive Social at ForceCenter Pod. We're on Facebook at ForceCenter Podcast, Instagram as well, and on YouTube. Don't forget, we're trying to grow over there. Subscribe, check us out. We got some additional content. If you missed the live show this last Friday, but you want to see us recite / kind of talk sing the Life Day song, A Day to Celebrate, the clip is out there. You can watch it on our YouTube channel there. Podcast available in a lot of spots. Just search, you'll find us. Merch available at tpublic.com/user/ForceCenter. Shout out to Alex Damon wearing our ForceCenter Speculate Responsibly on his Q&A episode this week. I saw that. Patreon.com/ForceCenter is where you can support us directly. You can follow me at Ken Napzok or go to kennapzok.com. I'll be in Seattle at Capitol Hill Comedy /Bar, 22nd, 23rd with Lisa Wallen and Mark Ellis. Check out tickets on that website or mine, kennapzok.com. Jen, where can they find you?
Fun. You can find me on Instagram and YouTube at Jennifer Landa and TikTok at Jennifer Landa 1138.
Joseph, take us home, sir.
Excellent. Yes, you can find me on social media, in particular Blue Sky. I'm enjoying, and Instagram at Joseph Scrimshaw. That is my handle everywhere. And if you'd like to check out and stay up to date with any of the short films I'm doing or other live performances that are coming up, you can go to my website, josephscrimshaw.com. If you'd like to help me make more short films, buying an album on Bandcamp helps me tremendously. All that money goes to my production company, Strange Path, to make more movies. The button's on my website, josephscrimshaw.com.
There it is. So, for Thrawn, his hair, his eyes, and his goals, that is ForceCenter this week. We'll see you next time. Bye.